Hello, welcome you all to the lecture series in political theory. I am Professor H. Srikanth. Today I will be introducing to you the ideas of Gayatri Spivak Chakravorty, who is considered as the most versatile and erudite scholar in post-colonial studies. Gayatri Spivak Chakravorty is one among the post-colonial trinity, other two being Edward Said and Homi Bhabha. She is an Indian scholar who had her early education in Kolkata and later went to Cornell University to study comparative literature. She worked as professor at Columbia University. She translated Derrida's work Grammatology into English. She also translated the short stories of Indian writer Mahashweta Devi and gave a post-colonial touch. Spivak has many articles and lectures to her credit, but she is remembered for her much debated long essay titled Can the Subaltern Speak? Spivak identifies herself as an old-fashioned Marxist and post-structuralist feminist. In her recent writings, such as a critique of the post-colonial reason and another article, How the Heritage of Post-Colonial Studies Thinks Colonialism Today, she distances herself from certain strands in post-colonial studies. Still, her works show that her ideas are in many ways similar to the works of other post-colonial thinkers. She has also argued that Western thinking is colonial in nature. Knowledge emanating from the West is basically meant for the consumption of the West, and it has little to do with the real post-colonial world. Knowledge, like any commodity, is exported from the West to the Third World for economic and political gains. Like Edward Said, Spivak also claims that Western knowledge about other culture is usually the justification of colonialism, meant for the justification of colonialism and for enslavement of the native. The West is obsessed with preserving itself as subject, and their discourse of others is primarily meant to establish its superiority over others, and in this process establishing Western domination over other cultures. In this respect, she does not differentiate between the liberals and the radicals in the West and accuses even the feminist, European, Marxist and even postmodern thinkers like Foucault and Deleuze for committing epistemic violence against the Third World people. He disassociates from those postmodernists and subaltern historians who believe in the ability of the subaltern to speak its mind. She thinks that this is not true in case of countries like India. Spivak argues that the globalization process produced a global division of labor and gave birth to a different kind of subaltern in the post-colonial countries. The third world subaltern, comprising of the marginalized peasants, tribals and women, experience crude forms of discrimination, oppression and alienation unknown to the proletariat in the West. The Western ideas of emancipation therefore do not work for the post-colonial subaltern living in a different cultural milieu. The European mind can never understand the specificity of the third world. To substantiate her argument, Spivak discusses the attempts made by the British colonizers in codifying the Hindu laws and showed how their efforts made them conclude that Sati Pratha, a practice of burning widows among certain caste Hindus, as a general practice among all Hindus. Spivak points out that British only relied on Brahminical writings on the subject and ignored widespread differences in theory and practice of Sati Pratha across the Hindu communities. The British condemned Sati Pratha as a barbarian act and projected its initiative to stop the practice of sati as an attempt to save the brown women from brown men. The discourse on sati was monopolized by the British on the one hand and by orthodox Brahmins on the other. That Sati Pratha was not at all a widespread practice was ignored. The Hindu woman who was the object of Sati Pratha was never asked what she thinks of the practice and what she wants. Decisions were taken on her behalf by more powerful entities in their own interests. The British used its initiative to abolish the practice of Sati Pratha for convincing its own people in England that all Hindus are barbarians and the whites are more humane. Actually, this logic was used basically to justify colonialism and continuation of colonial rule in India. Citing another incident of a suicide by a Hindu widow in 1920s, the actual reason of which was unknown, Spivak argues that one can make many meanings out of it. The one who died by suicide did not leave any note mentioning the cause. Spivak projects that as the silence of the subaltern. She arrives at the conclusion that the dominant discourses do not allow the subaltern to speak. Unlike the more articulate, organized, and educated subaltern in the West, the third world subaltern, constrained by caste, religion, and gender, cannot really speak their minds. Hence, Spivak advocates the need for post-colonial to take up the cause of the subaltern, not so much to speak on their behalf, but to expose the ideology of the imperialist discourse and explain the silences of the subaltern by using deconstruction method. Over the decades, the theory and practice of Gayatri Spivak Chakravorty was discussed by academia. There are admirers as well as critics. I'm not going to give my own views here. I hope to come out with a separate lecture on the criticism of Gayatri Spivak and other post-colonial thinkers. Here, I thought I only explained to you the foundations of her post-colonial thinking. I hope I could make you understand the essence of Spivak's ideas. If you like my lectures, subscribe to my YouTube channel and inform about my lectures to like-minded scholars and students interested in political theory. I take leave for now. Thank you very much and see you soon.